Welcome, everyone, to the C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. Today, we've got a very exciting conversation about AI and actually not how we use AI kind of traditionally with ChatGPT and writing articles and titles and things like that, but how do we use AI for competitive marketing? And Angela Hill is here with us today. And Angela is going to help expand our understanding of AI and where it's going. Now, Angela, you are a fractional CMO at Chief Outsiders. You've been doing that for over 7 years, worked with 15 plus different B2B companies during that time. You also had your own B2B agency for over 20 years, and you help hundreds and hundreds of B2B companies. So I think you're well qualified to help us learn here a little bit about how do we take all this AI and how do we turn it into the go-to-market strategies, the competitive marketing that we have for our B2B companies. So with that, I'm going to let you expand on your background a little bit, and then we're going to dive in.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, so I've been working in branding and marketing for 30 years. I actually started my career working at really big agencies, working with big brands and B2C, and I did that for 10 years before I transitioned to focusing exclusively on B2B for 20 years. And then in the past several years, I've worked primarily with B2B companies. Some of them have an emphasis also in B2C, but I like working in the B2B space.
Well, fantastic. So I know you also like to work with AI, and in our past conversations, you've had some really incredible ways that you're thinking about AI. And I just wanted to bring those onto the podcast so that we could share with our guests because you're doing some really nice things. But if you could kind of just set the foundation for us in terms of how do you think about AI and AI as a tool, especially for marketing and promoting B2B companies?
Sure. So for me, when I look at AI, it's kind of the same way I look at Google. It's a tool that I use to accomplish work, but it doesn't necessarily replace thinking or strategy or a person. It's more like a thought partner that helps you accelerate the work that you're trying to complete.
It makes good sense. And how do you give us an example of how you think about and utilize AI in your own business and for your clients?
Sure. So there's a lot of different tools and software that I use. It changes obviously depending on the client and what problem we're trying to solve. I think the important thing to think about is the quality of the output is directly correlated to the quality of the input. So there's a lot of thinking, um, thoughtful consideration that needs to be done before you use an AI software tool. You need to be very clear regarding what you're trying to accomplish. Obviously, you don't want to enter in anything that is sensitive or protected or relating to intellectual property. But there are other things that you can do, like when you're thinking about working on your customer archetypes or your competitive landscape or thinking through your value proposition as you're going through the strategy, I can be a tool. In addition, there are other things on top of that where you can improve different aspects of your marketing technology and your ad tech stack simply by layering on another tool that enhances something that you're already using. And I think primarily that's mostly what we're going to talk about today.
How do you want to start out? Like you have a number of different use cases and ways that you use AI. What's the most important that you want us to kind of understand for the beginning here?
So I think what's most important is before you even think about using AI, you need to understand your company in terms of your product and service. What is it that you sell? Your customer in terms of your archetypes, who are you selling to? And your competition in terms of your competitive landscape. How are you different and better than your competition? Until you do that initial strategic work, everything else is not going to work and it's going to be a waste of time and money.
Makes good sense. We got to have in terms of the foundation, we got to have the strategy, the foundation in place. In terms of though, how you start applying it. So let's assume we've got that down. And I know that there's a lot of work that a lot of this companies have. In fact, there was a stat that just I read the other day that just in terms of alignment between sales and marketing on like the definition of our ICP, there's only 16% alignment between those two departments on average in B2B companies. So I like that you brought up the fact that we need to have this foundation in place, right? Let's assume we do. And let's assume now that we're looking for ways to get more competitive, to get more done, get a leg up in the market. Where is the first place that you kind of think about starting?
Well, I always start by doing an assessment of my client to see where they are. So that involves not only looking at um, the website foundation and the Google Analytics and the AdWords and email marketing and social media, all the traditional metrics for where are you marketing and selling and how is it performing or not performing. And then I do an assessment of your automated qualified leads, your marketing qualified leads, your sales qualified leads. I take a look at the percentage conversions between your life cycle stages. I look at the deal velocity. So when you create a deal to when it's either closed won or closed lost, how quickly are you getting deals through the pipeline? And then I also take a look at the pipeline. So we talk about tofu, mofu, bofu. That's top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Where are we seeing issues in that part of the funnel? And do we have any lead leakage? So, what I'm seeing most commonly right now with a lot of clients is that they're doing a lot of the right things. They have good technology in place, and yet they don't have visibility into where they may have lead leakage, or they don't have a piece of technology or a system or a process or a person and a role to plug into a certain part of that pipeline. And so when we talk about building a healthy sales and marketing engine, I think of AI as if I don't have budget for a person, if I don't have budget to expand my marketing and my business development and my sales team, how do I enable people within the organization to be more productive and accomplish more, as well as have visibility into their work and be able to prove not only marketing attribution, but marketing ROI. And I think that's where AI can come in into a lot of different places, not only to give us visibility, but to plug those holes to make the sales and marketing engine more effective, more efficient, and more productive.
How do you explain that? So that's intriguing, right? Where AI can really assist and help. How do you give some granularity to that so we can start understanding?
Well, are you looking at for example?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
How do we start applying AI to get that competitive advantage in the marketplace?
Okay. So, for example, we can look at enhancing the user experience on a client's website by improving the buyer's journey. So, you say, Angela, okay, I think I understand the buyer's journey. They're going through the website. They're at different stages where they're doing their research or, they're looking for legitimization or they're trying to make a decision. How can AI help with that? So, one way is using something like an AI chatbot. There are chatbots that are HIPAA compliant. So you can get a voice and text assistant in a healthcare environment to communicate with your patients. They can help them renew a prescription. They can help them schedule an appointment. They can help them reschedule an appointment. They can schedule a telehealth. They can collect information prior to a telehealth appointment. They can answer basic questions. Now, that's for a healthcare environment. You can also do that for technology, or you could do it for a services company. What I'm seeing right now is with the right information, like think about all your FAQs or your knowledge base, the stuff that you use to train your salespeople before they start selling. That's the same information you can train an AI chatbot, and you can teach it to interact with your customers who are going through the buyer journey, who are trying to figure out how to engage with your brand and how to move them faster through the process and thereby improve the customer experience, decrease the amount of calls and requests that you get to your customer service team, increase customer or patient satisfaction, and people aren't offended having to talk to a bot if they can get an answer faster.
Right. So understand, because we've definitely been trained as consumers, right? We get on and we go to AI chatbots all the time. And, and there's almost always and should be a opportunity that if you haven't gotten the information you want, that you could actually get a hold of someone or at least email the team, right? And those AI chatbots are fantastic for taking care of a lot of the small things that are just the tonnage of questions that people have when they come in. So they get helped. Your company gets helped in terms of reduced costs. Everybody's happier. Your CSAT scores go up. Everything. So that's a great example, right? And I think we remember things 22 times more when they're told to us in the form of a story, like an actual use case, right? An example of how to put it into place. I know that you have some ideas on AI and the customer experience. That's what you just went over. What's the next thing that you think is like an important way that we need to be creating this kind of competitive marketing advantage through AI?
Mhm. So, speaking of the buyer journey and website user experience, another tool that I really like to use that I've been experimenting with two of my clients currently, it's called PathMonkey. And it is an overlay that serves different content depending on how it sees a user using the website and where they are in the journey. And it has an AI avatar that it automatically generates for you. It has content that it generates. It has micro experiences. And what I like about it is that I can do A/B testing for my original content without the overlay and with the overlay. And with one client, I'm seeing a 50% improvement in conversions. And with the other client, I'm seeing a 70% improvement in conversions, which when you're already doing all the work to create the content for the website, you're already doing all your organic search and your paid search, getting that extra lift in the conversions, which for the one client is form submissions that goes to the customer service and sales team. And for the other client, it's booked appointment.
That's absolutely huge. I mean, I did a whole podcast on if you could, at the different stages of the buyer's journey, what a 1% increase could actually mean, right? Like a 1% increase on MQLs that then turn to SQLs that turn to booked meetings that turn, right? And so the 50%, 75% is absolutely amazing. So with PathMonk, which is the company that you're using on that, tell us a little bit about like some of these alternative, strategies for based on what you're doing on the site, then you get different content. What are some of the behaviors on the site that are triggers that then you would be doing something different with them, so we could start to understand that a little bit more?
What's cool about, we'll talk about Pathman specifically, but there are other software out there that do different things that are kind of similar to this as well. It's not the same, but I think what's important is the AI component because it's monitoring how someone behaves before they get to the conversion. So what I do with the software is I define what my ideal conversion looks like. I build out my initial rough outline of a buyer persona, but then the software watches and it learns from the behavior. So for example, let's say I go to the website, I'm looking at a particular product or service, then I go over to the about page to look at the leadership team or the staff. I'm probably in my consideration phase, right? But let's say I've gone to that particular product or service and I'm looking at what are the different appointment booking times before I schedule an appointment. I'm probably in my decision making phase. So just watching how someone behaves, and the more people go to the website, the more the AI learns. Oh, this is the entrance page. This is the exit page. And this is the path people are taking when they get to that ideal outcome of filling out a form or booking an appointment or, you know, clicking the call center. It's watching hundreds of engagements. So, for example, it just so happens each of my clients that I've talked about, I want to say they have 60,000 visitors per month. So that's a lot of information that every month the AI agent is learning from and getting better and better as it's seeing, oh, this is how someone moves through your website to get to that ideal conversion. And because I'm training it, this is the result that I want. Then it's reverse engineering. Well, how did they get to that result every time?
So is it giving pop-ups or things like that that lead
Yeah.
them to the next steps?
Yeah, it's a pop-up overlay and it has different cards that talk about different products and services, and also has a little AI avatar that speaks to you. And so it's delivering information in different ways, but the information it delivers changes based on where you are in your decision-making process and how long you've been on the website and what you're looking at. And it's always A/B testing. So there's always a control group. I do an 80/20, so I do a 20% control group so that I always know without it, how is it performing? And then that tells me if I decide to add content to the website or I decide to change the user experience in terms of the design or restructure the navigation, how did that have a positive or negative impact on the site that is separate from this overlay that's on top of it?
What's so interesting about this is that, in today's buyer's journey, I think the stat that Sixth Sense just came out with a week or so ago was that 81% of B2B buyers have made the decision on who they're going to award the business to before they want to talk to you. What it means is they're exploring, right? They're looking for content on their own. And what I love about this is it's a predictive model, right? That the ones that convert on the end, like to a booked meeting, like enough interest based on what I've seen here, I want to book a meeting with you. What have they looked at, right? And what has created that interest, enough of a high enough interest that they want to actually reach out and talk to you. So this is the kind of thing that as content is basically getting more and more important, because if they're consuming more content to make their decisions before they buy us, then our content is what we have. That's what we have to help influence their decisions. And here's the thing I wanted to ask you a question on this, because we all know today's buyer journey is like spaghetti, right? And we've in the past we've typically created content that would be lower funnel content, upper funnel content, right? Product marketing, more thought leadership. But the buyer might be consuming some, lower level content, but then actually consuming some thought leadership content too. It's not a linear process. Has that is that given kind of a more of a view to that? Is that validated that they're doing exactly that? Or what lessons have you learned, from watching all of this data?
What I have learned is if there is an ideal outcome that we want from a website visitor, we need to make it clearer how to get to that ideal outcome. And I feel like so many times people create a website and there's a traditional navigation, right? So there's your logo, there's your product or services, there's, about, there's a blog, there's contact us. That's it, right? And so people think, oh, people are used to this standard navigation. I've done a good job in helping them get where they want to go because I've organized all my information in that way. Kind of like when you think about a book that has chapters and a table of contents, you think, oh, it goes in a certain order. It needs to be organized in a certain way because that's how everybody does it.
Yes.
And what I am learning as I'm watching user behavior is that we need to make it easier for a prospective customer to self-identify.
Mm.
So, for example, I have one client and they sell to physicians and they sell to patients. And so what we are doing is instead of having a contact us button, we're having a button that says providers, which is what we call the physicians, because sometimes it's a nurse practitioner or, someone like that in the medical field. And we have one button for patients because a patient needs to be able to go to one page and see the 6 different ways that they can interact with that particular brand and choose what works best for them and move forward. And maybe they've already come to the website before. They've already done the due diligence to take a look at the products and the services, or maybe they were already referred to the brand by someone else and they know exactly what they're trying to accomplish and they just want to get a fax form for a prescription or they just want to book an appointment for a service. And we make it so hard for customers to interact with brands when we follow a traditional navigation model, and we shouldn't be afraid to do something that's customized and specific for our ideal customer archetypes that says, hey, I know who you are. I know what you're looking for. Let me give you a shortcut for how to get there.
Makes perfect sense. And is that shortcut, is it kind of like an AI assistant that pops up, or what does
Well,
that look?
that's what PathMonk does.
Yeah.
But now I'm taking the lessons learned and I'm going back and I'm changing the user experience and I'm redesigning the navigation based on what I'm learning from the AI.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So that intuitively, the way that we navigate through the main navigation and an assistant from PathMonk are the two combinations. I think we've all come to a website before and not been able to find what we're looking for, right? Or an AI assistant that isn't well trained, that foundation that you talked about at the very beginning,
Right.
So what is in terms of the world of AI, because we've already talked about a lot in terms of, we spent so much time creating content and putting it up, and half the time it never gets found, it never gets used. We post it on social, it's there, it's done, it's gone, right? And what you're doing now is helping to prioritize the content that marketing should be working on. Because if there's certain paths and certain content that's being consumed, that also, I would think, tell us we can even do better on the content that they're consuming. Where do we want to spend time? It's not just, oh, let's churn out a blog post a week because that's our cadence. It might be much, much more important for, here's a bank of content over here that they're interacting with. How do we make that even more important for them, more useful for them? And I can even do that and test that. But I think so not only is it giving them the right things in order to get to the right outcomes, but it's helping you in terms of where do you focus your content creation priorities. Is that a good takeaway as well?
Yeah. Well, and I also use other tools which aren't necessarily AI, but they give me intelligence. So I also like to use Crazy Egg, which will give me the heat map and the confetti and shows me how people are interacting with content. And the difference between Crazy Egg and Google Analytics is that Google Analytics will tell me when someone clicked on something, but that has to be a link that's clickable. Whereas Crazy Egg will tell me, oh, people are clicking on that header or people are clicking on that image. It's not currently a link. If I added a link behind it, that would improve the user experience. And then Lucky Orange is a video capture. So this is really great for software as a service, but anytime, or e-commerce, anytime you have someone who has to go through a bunch of clicks to get to an end result, if we can analyze that journey and watch along with them, we can see where they're getting frustrated. And then they have something called, I don't know if this is Crazy Egg or Lucky Orange, but I think it's Crazy Egg. They have something called a rage click. So it will actually track when someone had clicked very angrily over and over on something. And then you can take that back and say, okay, web designer or web developer, we need to fix this. And I can show you exactly where it's happening and how many people in the past month were frustrated with this particular functionality not working the way we expect. So I
Reference.
guess my point here is when we think about user experience, it's we can't rely exclusively on AI. There are other tools that we also have to use in tandem with AI. And it's kind of like, remember when websites first came out, and then we had organic search, and then we had paid search, and then we had email marketing, and then we had social media. And each aspect of marketing didn't replace the one before. It was something that went into this marketing ecosystem that we then used in tandem with each other to make our end result better. And that's really how I think about AI software. It's just another tool in my toolbox that helps me get a better result, but it doesn't replace other things that I still use.
Angela, what haven't we talked about yet that
Oh,
you
so
wanted to make sure that you communicated on the podcast? Because we've gone through a lot, right?
much. So, one thing that's really cool that I learned about from a colleague of mine, is that there's software out there that you can generate imagery that would normally take you maybe a week of photo shoots. Let's say in a B2C environment where you have a person and you have a product, you could take pictures of your product from all these different angles. You can take pictures of your people, you could take pictures of environments, and then you can use AI software to mix and match and put it all together for you, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, HubSpot, that's a marketing automation and sales CRM tool that I love to use. HubSpot just announced an AI component last month at their big inbound national conference. So they have Copilot, which is basically like an interactive chat bot that you can ask it stuff and it'll give you answers. And then they have Breeze, which it's an AI agent. And what I like about Breeze is that let's say you're trying to generate a complicated report, or let's say you're trying to build a complicated workflow and you don't know the correct terminology in terms of objects or properties or fields to get the system to do what you want, but you know what the end result needs to look like.
Yeah.
You can now use everyday language to get that output. So what normally might have taken you 15 to 30 minutes can take you less than 5 minutes. So that's amazing. Um, and then, there's some cool stuff like I've been looking into Hyros, which is a way to maximize your Google ad campaigns. What it does is it specifically focuses on ROAS, which is your return on ad spend. And what's cool about it is, let's say I'm in Google AdWords and I'm running a bunch of ads. I can look at that data in terms of my ad campaigns, or I can look at it in terms of my conversions, or I can look at it in terms of geography. But when I go into Hyros, which is HYROS, I can get the granularity of data to see how my campaign is performing for a specific product or service in a specific city or specific for a location for a brick and mortar. And I can then do testing and optimization using performance maps, which is basically like the Google ad AI driven generative ad campaigns where I'm mixing and matching my headers and my subheaders and my images and my video. And I'm training Google Ads to get a better result every month by focusing on what my ideal conversion looks like. I mean, it's just crazy what you can do. So, for example, I have a client who uses customers.ai. And what customers.ai does, it's basically, I call it IP address sniffing. And you put it on your website, and customers come to the website. It pulls out somehow, I don't know how it works, and supposedly it's compliant. That's what it says on the website. It pulls out the first name, the last name, and the email address for the person that's visiting the website. I can then feed that back into my Google Ads and my Meta Ads to say, yes, this is performing well or not performing well based on my ideal target client. And then I can also put it into, for example, an email drip campaign for lead nurturing to take someone through the process. And I can tie that to what pages they were looking at to see like what product or service they're interested in. So I'm starting to feed them information. It's just crazy. I mean, it goes on and on. I could spend 3 hours and still not talk about every possible software there is out there.
Well, how about if you do this? What's the 30-second wrap up here? For everybody that's been watching or listening to this, what's the one most important thing that you want them to take away?
The most important thing I want your audience to take away is that AI is a tool. It can be a very powerful, beneficial tool. It should be used thoughtfully, strategically, and carefully. We don't want to feed it information that is tied to intellectual property or that's confidential or that's your company's secret sauce. But as long as we have the right policies in place, we can leverage it to be infinitely more effective in our marketing and sales efforts. However, AI is a tool. It doesn't replace the mechanic. So we still need good people who are doing thoughtful, considerate marketing, business development, and sales in the organization that truly understand what is my ideal outcome, what are my leading and lagging indicators, what are the KPIs that are going to drive the ideal marketing, sales, and business outcomes that we want for the organization. And how do we make sure that everyone is in alignment with what we're trying to accomplish?
I love it. And you know what? I know people are going to have questions as well. Would it be appropriate if we gave a link out to, say, your LinkedIn profile that people could reach out to you?
Absolutely.
Well, fantastic. Well, Angel, thank you for coming on and in such an incredible way, sharing details of how the new tools that utilize AI that could really give us a lot better picture on how do we increase conversions and all the supplemental steps that kind of come up to that. I just appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.